Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit here about Chapter 5, Maintenance Records. Maintenance is one of the things that you and I do on a regular basis with the equipment that's in our shop. And so we'll see what our textbook has to say about it and what kind of pointers that they can give us that we can use on a regular basis. Now, your book talks about routine maintenance. This is the kind of maintenance that you and I are going to do on a regular basis and a regular schedule that we have set up on our with our equipment. And so one of the things that routine maintenance can do for us is, first of all, and probably most importantly, is to provide a safe working environment for our students and ourselves. I'll just put a big number 1 right here. And obviously, we want no one to get hurt in our labs. We don't want our students working on broken, dangerous machinery. That's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. So by keeping a regular schedule of maintenance, we can see whenever equipment is beginning to wear out. We can then shut it down, tag it, lock it out, and like that we don't have to worry about somebody accidentally or by on purpose going out there and getting hurt on a machine that is obviously unsafe to use. And let's face it, if our labs are operating like they ought to, our equipment will get used by our students. And it's just a fact of life that equipment will wear out, will need to be maintained. So safety is our number 1 concern. Now, that maintenance can be done by us, the instructor. And obviously, we're probably all fairly familiar with our equipment. And certainly our owner's manuals, our operating manuals for our equipment will provide us with enough information for us to at least do some regular maintenance on our equipment. Now, obviously, there may come a point in time where something wears out where we don't have the ability to make that repair. Then we can call in the experts to get that done for us. But a whole lot of maintenance can be done by us. Now, some people may have a problem with this, but all in all, it is another possibility that we can look at. Letting routine maintenance be performed by students. On the positive side, if we can train our students to be able to properly maintain their equipment, that is certainly a skill and a mindset that they can certainly use when they go to work, because they'll be asked to do that on the job. Hopefully, a lot of our equipment that we use is the same that industry uses, so that gives them some familiarity with the equipment that they'll see on the work site or in their careers, and thus be able to effectively maintain that equipment while they're working with it. On the downside, I guess it all gets down to trust. Do you and I trust our students to be able to get the job done? And I guess that we have to just kind of know our students, but certainly we wouldn't want a student that doesn't have the experience and doesn't have the confidence to go out there and maintain equipment. And certainly, and we also ought to even look at not, trusting that they're going to get it done. You and I may have to go out there and check, and should check to make sure that they have done it properly. But with a class of 20, 25 students, sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. And so we need to be sort of careful with point number 3, but yet it could be a very, very positive experience for them if it's done right. And then finally, stock frequently needed parts and supplies. You and I have parts that we need to be able to keep in stock to utilize parts that wear out. I guess what comes to mind right now is if our budget permits, it's really nice to have ourselves a little stock of toner for maybe some of our laser printers. We don't sometimes know that they're going out until the printer stops working, or else the sheets are all streaked up and nothing comes out, and then we have to go out there and order toner and cartridges, and maybe we won't get them whenever we need them, to have to go through the purchasing process. But it's nice to have maybe one, and if we're lucky, 2 in reserve. So all we got to do is take the old one out, pop the new one in, and we're ready to go. We don't miss a lick there. And just about every kind of lab that teaches vocational education has some kind of equipment or a resource that is going to get consumed. So having a nice little stock would be a great thing. But unfortunately, with our budgets right now, sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. So moving on. Then we've got preventative maintenance. Now, what is the difference between routine maintenance and preventative maintenance? Well, preventative maintenance is a regularly scheduled inspection and service to prevent breakdowns. We do this every day, every week, every month, every semester, whatever it is. We do that. And I guess I kind of use my my lab as an example. My students utilize the computers in my lab on a regular basis every day, 5 days a week. And I maintain the computers, making sure that there aren't any viruses or anything like that. But then once a semester, usually at the end of the semester, I will do some preventative maintenance on every one of those PCs. I will go in, clean out the My Documents folder. I will go in and just PC by PC look at all of the files, make sure nobody has loaded any kind of software on there. I will wipe those applications off the computer. I'll do disk defragging. I'll run some diagnostic software to make sure that the hard drives are working, and things like that. And that'll usually take me about 2 days of working in the lab and really not doing a whole lot of other stuff around my classroom and the school. I just sit there and I make sure that every one of those computers is clean, operating, and ready for the next semester. And it does take some work for me. So by doing that, hopefully you and I are going to get some long and reliable equipment service out of our equipment that it'll run for a long time. And let's face it, equipment is expensive. You know, we got no guarantee that we'll ever be able to replace that piece of equipment. And so we want to try to make it last as long as we can. And so a preventive maintenance schedule is a wonderful thing to do. That would also include that we inspect our equipment periodically, kind of like what I was explaining about mine. For a lot of people, once a semester is not going to get it done. You may have to do it weekly, daily, certainly more frequently than maybe once a semester. So just use some common sense, know your equipment, and know what it's going to take to keep it in top running condition. And then performing needed service. For example, we do some basic maintenance on the copiers that we lease. We remove jams. We can clean some certain portions of the copier, but there are some drums obviously that have to be changed, some belts that have to be tightened, some rollers that have to be aligned, and things like that. And so the only person that can really get that done is a service technician. And we have all kinds of pieces of equipment that really require someone with a whole lot of in-depth skill in repairing and maintaining our equipment that is really beyond us, like I said before. With hopefully we have built into our budgets that kind of money to be able to provide that kind of service if and when we need it. And that may certainly include replacing some parts and equipment. For example, getting back to my lab, I didn't show you in the pictures, and you can kind of see it from one of the photos. My office is like just on the other side of the classroom. And a number of years ago, my former boss, one of our former administrators, came up to me and said, I got $15,000 to spend. And so that once I kind of picked myself up off the ground, he said, do you need anything? And so I really didn't need any kind of computers or any kind of equipment. But one thing that we did not have at Acadian at that time was a networked printer. And so I said, well, look, we have our fiber optic network. And so I told our administrator, I said, look, why don't we spend the money on a, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, network printer that the whole school could use. And so he kind of liked that idea, because at that point we had some color printers, but they were all just some inkjet printers that we had at our respective desk. And from after doing some research and looking at the printers, I decided on a HP 9500 printer, and everything that I read and was able to gather about the printer, it was just top of the line. So we went and bought it. Now, obviously, that was a big ticket item, but we installed it and used it for about 5 or 6 years. I had to buy toner. Of course, the toner cartridges were pretty steep in price, but I got well over 150,000 pages before I had to do any kind of replacement, as well as the color was just breathtaking. It was so good. So we used it for all kinds of jobs there at school, especially to print our school brochures. Just did a fantastic job on that. Well, other parts of the printer began to wear out, that being the color drums. And those things were about $500 a piece. I tried to stretch it as far as I could, but it got to the point where the drums gave out and I couldn't use the printer. So that went for about 2 years that the printer was just sitting there. And lo and behold, one day, one of the grant writers had a little money, and I said, well, look, you got anything for supplies? And I said, I need 4 drums for this particular printer. And she said, well, I got about, $2,000 to $3,000. Well, I said, well, look, I can spend that and then plus. And so I was able to get new drums and then also a new fuser assembly to replace the old one. And in fact, we have now the printer running again. And about 2 weeks ago, my fuser started giving me problems. So lucky enough, I had bought an extra fuser with the excess money. I just swapped out the fusers, and now that printer looks like it just came off the showroom floor. It's working fine, and we're looking at another 150,000 copies that we could make with that printer. And so you got to replace stuff. Big problem is having the money to do it. So also, you and I finally need to be able to record inspection reports. We ought to have some way that we can document that we have inspected, maintained that equipment, especially for safety audits. So that pretty much wraps up preventive maintenance. Now, your author spends a little time talking about student participation in maintenance. If we're going to do it, what are some ways that we can get it done? Well, first of all, rotate some students through lab maintenance assignments. Give them all a chance to be able to maintain the equipment. And certainly, getting back to real life, there are some students that we can certainly maybe trust to get it done. There are some that we would certainly have to monitor. But you and I ought to know our people well enough to be able to know what to do. Another thing to do is just kind of start yourself a students maintenance crew. Get a team together. And 1 week, this team is going to perform maintenance, and then rotate out to another team the following week. Now, we got to understand, obviously, that there's some tasks that we don't want them doing, because they will be and may be beyond their ability level. Some may not, and those that aren't, we can take advantage of them. But just know that there's some things that they just won't be able to get done. And then one of the things that we can take from this is that it would provide students with a real life skill set for them to be able to go to work. So it's something to consider. I'll be quite honest with you. I've never had students do my maintenance for me. I taught drafting, when I taught woodworking, and now when I'm teaching computer literacy. This is just something that I take responsibility for. Of course, what you do is up to you. Then, what are some maintenance options? What are some ways that we can kind of keep our equipment up and running, ready to go? Well, obviously, in-house repair. If you and I got the skill to be able to do it, then we should. That'll probably be the cheapest, most effective way, because certainly we're not depending on anyone else, and you and I know exactly what we've done. I was able to use it, not have to worry about a technician with that HP 9500. I had some outstanding written directions and pictures to follow, and I had no problem getting it done. It was just that easy, kind of like the commercial. It's so easy a caveman could do it. Well, I was surprised. Everything was just as easy to work with, but that's not always the case. We have some very, very complicated and sensitive pieces of equipment that really need a well-skilled technician to maintain. Then we've got our maintenance agreements. We buy a piece of equipment. We can get a maintenance agreement that will provide us with periodic maintenance, or else replacement. If our printer or our copiers have a problem that's really too complicated to be able to repair there on the site, we've had more than one technician call up a phone number, and within 3 or 4 hours, there's a van that pulls up with a brand new printer or a copier, and they just take out the old one, put in the replacement. And so this has saved us a whole lot of money from just purchasing those copiers outright and then having to pay to have them maintained. Then maybe your system, your institution, or maybe your local school board provides institutional maintenance service. Maybe there's some maintenance people that have been hired that do nothing but fix equipment. When I worked in East Baton Rouge Parish, one of the things that was really kind of unique to East Baton Rouge Parish that was really great was that East Baton Rouge Parish would hire a number of industrial arts teachers to work the summers, and their job was to maintain equipment. They would go from school to school. Let's say there was a bandsaw that was broken. A woodworking teacher would go in there and do what it took to fix that, while the regular instructor, was out on vacation. And that worked very, very well. They paid the teachers a stipend who did it, and there were a whole lot of us that tried to get on the list to be able to do that for summers. But maybe your institution has some people hired who can do that. Run electricity, fix motors, things like that. A wonderful thing to have. And of course, it gets to scheduling that with those individuals. A maintenance plan. Certainly, we need to have a schedule or a plan, whatever you want to call it, in place to know that during an academic or a calendar year, these things are checked, these things are done on a regular basis. I know for our loss prevention plan, we have some regularly scheduled maintenance plans for all of our equipment that the school uses, like our water heaters, our air conditioning systems, and things like that. They are constantly checked, and there's a maintenance plan in place that, on such and such a time during the year, all of the filters are changed in the air conditioners. We've even got to the point that we hope that some of our maintenance people have said, okay, during May, we're shutting down, and we're going to be doing some waxing, stripping floors, waxing. And so obviously that's not equipment, but yet the same principle kind of applies, that you're scheduling some things to get done periodically throughout the year. And then, of course, keeping good records that you know when those things were done. And obviously right now with the advent of computers, there's really no excuse that you and I can't have a maintenance plan set up. And I'm sure somebody has thought up some kind of app that we could download to a smartphone or to an iPad and get that done real easy. And that kind of leads into the next one, a database management system. We could create our own in Access, or maybe even in Excel if we want to do any kind of calculations, maybe figuring out how much it cost us during the year. That's not that difficult to do. Then, if we're not going to go the computer route, then we need to have some kind of manual filing system where we have our paperwork, our forms that we have kind of developed, or else our institutions developed, that we keep them in a file cabinet. So in case somebody comes in, wants to see them, we got them right there. But we got to have a system. Now, one thing that your author kind of talks about is having a class record book. Obviously, we use that to keep students' grades, and many of these old green record books certainly have a whole lot of dates and so forth in them. And certainly, if we don't use all the page for a class, we can certainly use what's left to keep our maintenance records right there. And that would be a great place to put it. Make sure that it's in your class roll, because let's face it, every one of us uses it every day. And so that would be one thing that we could do. So that concludes our lecture for chapter 5. And so we will end the lecture here and move on to chapter 6 on safety.